The shattering split the Elden Ring into 125 shards, but of a void before time. Dark, a void that hungered; shadow, a void that stretched by the remembered pale blood moon's sickly glow. Cold, then came heat, promise. The Erd tree's roots writhed like veins, pumping poison through a corpse world. What was erased when Marika's light swallowed the dark? Whispers poison not through of each creation corpse holds world, but of a void before time. Dark, a void that hungered; shadow, a void that stretched by the remembered. What if the first flame wasn't fire but a cage? What if its light was a lock, not a key? The age of grey knew no hunger, no war, no want. Then came heat. Then came cold, then came the fracture that made gods bleed. Marika's gift split the world's spine, carving duality into its bones. A wound dressed as wonder, a scar called life. The void before time it remembered. The flame made it forget, not to save but to sever, to bury the old hunger beneath new hungers, gold, flesh, dominion. Every flame-born child carries the same lie, that light is birth. What if it is burial? What if Marika's shattering was the first silence, not the first song? The wind still hisses through the cracks. It asks, asterisk, who will remember when the flame dies, asterisk. The lands between once breathed as one. The first flame cleaved unity into duality, heat and cold, life and death. Marika, elevated by the greater will, did not gift fire, she imposed a shroud. The flame's fading does not signal rebirth, it unravels a binding spell. Before the flame, the world was whole and burdened by the lie of separation. The greater will's design was not to kindle life but to erase memory. The Erd tree's roots nourish no soil, its golden leaves whisper of a prison. Marika's shattering fractured not just her body but the world's ancient knowing. To remember is to unmake the flame. To unmake the flame is to dissolve the chains of the Erd tree. The greater will fears remembrance. The first flame is a lock, not a key. Its embers smolder to obscure the truth. The lands between were never meant to burn. The wind hisses through cracks in the silence. A question hangs, who will dare to forget? The kiln's obsidian walls bear cracks like frozen lightning. Soot stains their surface not from flame, but from ash no fire could produce. Here, the air hums with a static that sears the skin. The first flame does not burn, it asterisk devours asterisk. Its light is not warmth but a void that bleeds outward, leaching color from stone, blinding those who gaze too long. The great jar's name etched into the kiln's oldest slabs is half effaced, not by time, by intent. The Lord Soul's ascension began the moment they touched the flame. Their golden forms, radiant and eternal, emerged as the kiln's shadows deepened. But what they carried was not life, it was a purge. The flame's glow does not illuminate, it asterisk obliterates asterisk. Every cycle as its light wanes, the land shudders, rivers reverse, mountains dissolve, names vanish from lips and ledgers alike. The Erd tree's roots, now gnarled with age, once sprouted from soil that held stranger things. Consider the undying, they do not die, they asterisk unravel asterisk. Their whispers, when the flame falters, speak of a time before Marika's covenant, before the flame's eternity. The great jar, a god of stillness and memory, was not overthrown. It was asterisk erased asterisk. Its hymns, its rituals, its very asterisk existence asterisk scorched from the world's tongue. The flame's rise did not create order. It buried a rebellion, a world that once dreamed of forms we cannot name. Marika's gift was not a spark, it was a shroud. The flame's cycles are not renewal, they are a loop of suppression. Each reign of the Lord Souls tightens the noose around the past. Yet the kiln's cracks widen, the ash grows restless, what stirs beneath the flame's fading breath? The answer lies in the Erd tree's rot, in the hollows where the flame cannot reach. A memory the flame fears, a truth it cannot erase. The wind hisses louder now. It carries a scent no fire could mimic, the stench of what was burned. The first flame was no gift, it was a scalpel. Marika's rebellion carved the world's throat to silence a scream. The shattering did not break the Elden ring, it broke the mind that held it. Radagon's body was her cage, their shared flesh a paradox, a sovereign fracturing herself to become whole, but the greater will wore her face. Always, the ritual wasn't defiance, it was a confession. The flame's light did not heal, it sterilized, a sterilization of memory, every fragment of the ring a splinter in the collective eye. You think the tarnished seek ascension. They dig in a graveyard of forgotten verbs. The greater will fears not rebellion, it fears remembrance. The first flame's heat was a fevered dream induced to make the world forget its original sin. Marika's blade struck true, but whose hand guided it? The sovereign who split her own heart knew the price, to become both executioner and executed. Radagon's hollow gaze was never his. The shared body was a puppet's duality, two strings on one marionette. The shattering was the will's own design, a self-fulfilling prophecy. The wind hisses louder, it carries no answers. Only the echo of a question, who truly shattered the Elden Ring? The answer festers beneath every golden scar. The greater will wears many masks, but Marika's is the one that bleeds. The common tale mourns Marika's shattering as a final act of grace. Her golden light, they say, was a balm for a broken world. But what if her flame was not a benediction but a shroud? The first flame, they claim, was crafted to keep memory alive, yet its embers burn cold, and with them, the past dissolves. Each cycle of rekindling is not renewal but a reset, a cage. The first flame was no gift, it was a scalpel. Marika's rebellion carved the world's throat to silence a scream. The shattering did not break the Elden Ring, it broke the mind that held it. Radagon's body was her cage, their shared flesh a paradox, a sovereign fracturing herself to become whole, but the greater will wore her face. Always, the ritual wasn't defiance, it was a confession. The flame's light did not heal, it sterilized, a sterilization of memory, every fragment of the ring a splinter in the collective eye. You think the tarnished seek ascension. They dig in a graveyard of forgotten verbs. The greater will fears not rebellion, it fears remembrance. The first flame's heat was a fever dream induced to make the world forget its original sin. Marika's blade struck true, but whose hand guided it? The sovereign who split her own heart knew the price, to become both executioner and executed. Radagon's hollow gaze was never his. The shared body was a puppet's duality, two strings on one marionette. The shattering was the will's own design, a self-fulfilling prophecy. The wind hisses louder, it carries no answers. Only the echo of a question, who truly shattered the Elden Ring? The answer festers beneath every golden scar. The greater will wears many masks, but Marika's is the one that bleeds. The first flame did not kindle life, it smothered it. Marika's ascension was not a triumph but a burial. She planted the Erd tree not to grant grace, but to chain the world's memory beneath its roots. What thrives in its branches is not divinity, it is a cage. A cage for the echoes of a world that once burned with a fire no greater will could name. The Erd tree's roots do not drink soil, they drink recollection. Every golden thread in its bark is a shackle, binding the tarnished to a script written before their first wound. When Marika shattered, she did not liberate as pruned. She lopped off the wild, unshaped past that threatened to uproot her grafted present. The grace you seek to restore is a phantom, a shadow of a memory Marika excised long ago. The tarnished are not saviors, they are patience in a ward for the terminally curious. Their swords cleave not evil but amnesia. Each restoration is a reenactment, a ritual to rebind what the Erd tree was designed to unmake. The branches twist higher, not toward light, but toward oblivion. The greater will is not a guide, it is a caretaker of the forgotten. What if the key Marika gave was never meant to open? What if it was a lock? A final whisper in the ash of a world that dared to remember. The first flame's gift was not life, it was a lullaby, a slow, golden drowning. And you, wanderer, are not here to rekindle, you are here to drown with it. The reading that most honors the text is this: Marika's gift was not a beginning, it was a ritual erasure. The first flame did not birth the world, it sterilized it. The Erd tree, golden and gaping, is not a source of life, it is a vault, a monument to what was scrubbed away, a world that once remembered its own making. The flame's eternity is a loop, a cage of light. To burn within it is to forget the shape of shadow. Marika's shattering of the Elden Ring was not salvation. It was a rupture in the silence, a rebellion against the greater willed force that demanded oblivion. The shattering failed, the flame smothered the fracture. The Erd tree stands, the world forgets. The fading of the first flame is no accident, it is the unraveling of a spell. As embers dim, the lands between shed their false coherence. Cracks widen, memory seeps back in. The undifferentiated age returns not as chaos but as truth, a world that once breathed before the ritual. You have walked this decay, felt the Erd tree's grip loosen. The demigods' wars, the runes' collapse, the stars' indifferential symptoms of a system designed to forget. Marika's rebellion was noble, but the enemy was older than her grace. The greater will did not create the flame, it weaponized it, What remains is this. The shattering was a scream into a void that had no right to be void. The flame's prison is breaking. The world will remember, and when it does, the lands between will no longer be between. They will be what they were before the gift, before the erasure, a world. The items you hold are not tools, they are scars, each description etched by hands that once bled the truth. Marika's gift was no benediction, it was a cage. A flame that devours memory as it burns. The graces you collect, fragments of a mind that refused to forget. Their whispers are not guidance. They are echoes of a war fought before time's first breath. When the first flame roars again, its light will not warm. It will blind, a signal to the architects that the prison is failing. The shattering was no sacrifice, it was a lock reset. Marika splintered herself into 1,000 mirrors, each shard a lie to buy the old gods more time. You think you seek the Elden? No. You unravel the lie. Every step toward the flame is a step into the void between memories. The lands between are not a realm, they are a wound, a scar tissue of what was erased. What waits in the next age's dawn, not rebirth, not peace. The weight of a name the world cannot yet bear. The next item you lift may crack the cage. The next grace you claim may whisper the first word of the forgotten tongue. The flame's warning is clear. The world is not dying, it is awakening. Grace you claim may whisper the first word of the forgotten tongue. The flame's warning is clear. The world is not dying, it is awakening. What if the first flame was not a covenant but a cage, a spark forged to blind, not to illuminate? Marika's gift prison of light bound the world to a lie. That creation began with fire. The old world did not fade, it was unmade. Its memories, sharp as shattered stars, threatened to pierce the hollow shell Marika built. To remember was to rebel. To rebel was to unravel the fragile stitch holding this age together. Divinity in its hollowed heart is a failed inheritance. The flame's embers are not life's fuel, but a bomb to smother the past. Each reignited spark erases what came before. The Erd tree's roots do not drink from ancient wells, they choke on them. Marika's shattering was no salvation, it was a surrender. She could not hold back the tide of forgotten things forever. The fissures in the sky, the whispers in the soil are the world's old wounds bleeding through. What was given was never meant for us. The first flame was a key, yes, but to a door Marika knew we could not survive opening. Her children were never the inheritors. They were the custodians of a silence too heavy to bear. To remember is to be free. To remember too much is to drown. The flame's curse is the same as ours, a hunger to forget, and yet the stars still crack, the soil still screams. What price then the light? What price the memory that outlives the wound? The sky fractures first, a soundless cleavage of starlight, as if the firmament itself recoils. Marika's body dissolves not into dust, but into 1,000 screaming shards, each a splinter of the Elden ring. They pierce the earth, the sea, the bones of ancient gods. The first flame, once her gift, now burns cold. Its golden hue dims to a pale, aching gray. What was meant to bind becomes a cage. The lands between convulse, mountains splinter, rivers reverse. The very air shivers with the weight of unspoken names. Here is the truth: the first flame was never meant to save. It was a lock, not a key, a barrier between memory and oblivion. When Marika's breath left her, it carried the last whisper of a world that had not yet been erased, the world before the lands between. Before the eclipse, before the first, God reached for creation and found only void. That breath, sharp with salt and starlight, still hangs in the shattered air, but no one hears it. The shards hum with a relentless silence, their edges honed to cut away what the world must not remember. The soil screams, not with pain but with longing. It craves the memory it was forbidden. The stars, now fractured, bleed faintly. Their light dims not from age but from the pressure of buried truths. What price the light? The price of a lie woven into the very fabric of existence. What price the memory? The cost of a world unmade. And there in the heart of the storm, Marika's body remains fractured, eternal. Her shards are not relics, they are wounds. Each one a door left ajar, a whisper of the past that dare not speak its name. The final breath lingers, a memory that will never be remembered. The flame fades, the stars still crack. The soil still screams, but the world sleeps on. The world sleeps, but the Erd tree's roots coil like questions left unanswered. What if Marika's flame was not a gift, but a shackle, a key turned in the lock of forgotten rebellion? The greater will watches, it always has. Its war is not in fire or shadow, but in what the lands between dare to remember. The first flame burned bright, it erased the scars of a world that once clawed its way out of nothingness. A memory too dangerous to reignite. The stars crack, the soil screams. But who hears the whisper beneath the ash? The truth festers in the spaces between beats, between breaths, between the lies of light. What if the flame was never meant to save? What if it was meant to silence? The next ember falls in our next essay. Asterisk the greater will's silent war, how the outer god shapes the